Switch to Verizon Business and get more from your internet without paying more for your internet. Get LTE Business Internet starting at $39 a month when paired with a Business Unlimited smartphone plan. That's unlimited data, and with it, unlimited possibilities. Start saving today with Verizon Business, ranked #1 in small business internet customer satisfaction by J.D. Power. Starting price for 25 megabits per second internet plan with savings, plus taxes, fees, and economic adjustment charge. Terms apply. For J.D. Power 2024 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Don't miss the Hulu original docuseries Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Frankie.
My wife created a YouTube channel.
Thumbs up, subscribe.
But only what we wanted to show.
I'm still recording!
A 3-part series of that.
She said the children were demonically possessed.
Get out!
That blew the powder keg.
Ruby crossed a line to psychotic.
911 emergency.
Open the door!
Hulu's Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Frankie. All episodes now streaming on Hulu.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, an unidentified body is pulled from the English Channel. How is the case tied to the hunt for one of Interpol's most wanted fugitives? We'll talk about Undercover, Sea of Lies from CBC Podcasts. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, lumberjack Kevin Flynn. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca. You're talking about my nice shirt here.
Yes.
It looks like a lumberjack.
Endless plaid.
Well, like green plaid. I don't know where would green lumberjacks
Kevin, you know what my type is, right?
No, me?
Straight bears is my type. You are
bears.
perfectly fitting into that category today.
Nice.
Thank you.
Meow. All right.
That is a niche market.
Yeah. Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of the Piper Green series of cozy mysteries, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going pretty great. I'm sorry that you've been having some tech issues today.
That's okay. Apparently, my USB device was not recognized because I wind it up too much when I carry it around for remote recording.
That's right. You are in New Hampshire's North Country today.
Yes.
And finally, our resident Doubting Thomas, author of the City Trilogy of novels, host of Strange Arrivals, Rip Current, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast host, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hey, Rebecca.
So, Kevin?
Yeah.
This is Thursday's program.
It is.
What's coming up on next Monday's show?
So next Monday, we're going to be talking about ABC's adaptation of the podcast Scamanda.
Oh, the one where they show the graphic where she has like one brown eye and one blue eye and it looks all creepy.
Is that how she really had?
Yes.
Did she have what?
And there's also in the trailer for it video of her running on the beach, like frolicking on the beach, a thing that Toby says that no one ever does if they're an adult. Scamanda does it.
Yeah.
I might do it now.
As I recall on the podcast, we thought the story was interesting, but we did not like the way the podcast was put together. It took a long time to talk about anything. There was
People
a whole
fucking
bunch
love
of
that
filler.
podcast, though. They love it.
Sure.
That podcast is like a sensation.
It's perennially like in the true crime top 10. I just thought it should be better because the story is so goddamn juicy. Like, it has all these different elements, like the church stuff, the cancer stuff. It's wild. Anyway.
Well, if anyone can elevate true crime, it's ABC.
Yeah.
Have we ever seen anything great from ABC that we should give a nod to or not?
I liked Lost.
Oh, you mean just anything like ever on ABC?
Yeah.
Wide World of Sports?
I watch Will Trent.
They did the World Wrist Wrestling Championships in Petaluma, California on ABC.
Yeah, all right.
Good.
Well, that counts.
All that counts.
All right, Kevin, we are here not to talk about a thing that we're talking about next week, but to talk about a thing we're talking about this week. Should we get that done?
My brain just broke.
I'm coming home from the future
to
tell you to talk about the thing you're supposed to be talking about.
Then let's do that.
Leading off.
I opened up the cod end, dropped the catch onto the deck, and immediately you could see the figure of a man lying on the deck in between the fish that we'd caught.
In 1996, fishermen pulled a body of a man out of the English Channel. An inscription on his Rolex watch led police to believe he was Ronald Platt, who, according to his friend David Davis, had left the UK for France to work as a TV repairman.
I think it was accepting that we were never going to find out the true circumstances of what had happened at that point. Okay, he'd come off a boat, that was obvious. He'd drowned, that was reality. How are we ever going to find out what happened?
Though the particulars of how Platt wound up in the sea remained unclear, investigators were ready to close the case. They just needed to retrieve some of his belongings from Davis's home. But when a detective accidentally knocked on the wrong door, the neighbor gave some information that turned the case on its head.
I said, I'm after David Davis.
David Davis? Frank furrowed his brow. He'd never heard of a David Davis.
And he said, oh no, Ron Platt lives next door.
The latest season of the CBC podcast series, Uncover, Sea of Lies, looks into the case of a deadly conman who was among Interpol's top fugitives. Host Sam Mullins from Wild Boys walks us through the investigation's many twists and turns to see how a nearly perfect crime came undone. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about plot points from Uncover, Sea of Lies. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. Laura, fisherman pulling up a net that smells bad. Thoughts?
Nothing good comes when a story starts with a long description by some fishermen who are out at sea, pull up their net and say, what's that?
I'd had the occasional dead seal in the fishing net, but this didn't smell like that. I'd never seen or smelt a dead body, but I think something instinctively inside of us knows when you're in that situation.
We start right off with fishermen pulling up a body, at first thinking it doesn't really look like a real body because the elements in the water or whatever, but then being like, there's a Rolex on the wrist. And that's where it starts. And I was hooked right from the beginning after that scene. As
like a fish?
Yeah, because of course I'm thinking of all the horrible things that happen, but I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, the I found the body section of most true crime podcasts are pretty dry. And this one quite literally isn't.
Funny.
Well, also, they had to contemplate their business. They were like, are we going to report this? Because we're going to have to throw away all our fish that's been sitting next to this dead body because nobody wants to eat dead body fish tonight,
Is there a similar, I was stunned by the law where if you find a body and nobody claims it after 5 weeks, you have to pay for its burial?
It belongs to you.
Is that a thing in the U.S.? That just seems insane.
I don't think so.
It is now.
Don't they have paupers' graves and stuff in the U.S. where the police just take an unknown person and put them in a grave somewhere in a pine box?
Just stick them somewhere?
Yeah.
I don't know. That whole thing, I was like, hold on a second.
Is this like The Ring where maybe you just take the body and you put it back out at sea and have somebody else find him?
Yeah, and then a horrible thing happens to them.
I just buried him at sea, that's all.
Toby's never going to become a commercial fisherman now.
It's the only thing that's stopping me. So if I have to pay to bury some corpse I pull up by accident.
You're talking about this could get really expensive for us.
Yeah.
Jesus.
How inconvenient.
I mean, what's interesting, it feels like a short story or something, two guys what should we do? This could be financially ruinous.
Yeah.
So we could just toss him back, or should we do the right thing?
And let some other fishermen find him. But Toby, I thought the whole first episode of this podcast was like a movie. It was so bing, bang, boom with twists and turns. What did you think about the structure of the first episode?
Yeah, I thought the structure of the whole show up until the last 2 episodes, I guess, was really, really good. It's not told chronologically at all. It's this series of reveals.
Yeah.
And I guess I would also say right now, if you want to listen to this podcast, I would just stop right here and go and listen to it and then come back.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of reveals. There's a lot of stuff to spoil, which I think
lots of shit goes down.
Will literally spoil your experience because it's part of the fun or enjoyment or whatever of this podcast is how they tell the story in this kind of well thought out, imaginative way where just when you think you get a handle on what's going on, they spring another surprise on you. And I feel like last week or 2 weeks ago, I was sort of complaining about how some podcasts had a good story, but it's they hadn't listened to other podcasts and didn't really use what was good about podcasts in order to tell the story. And I feel like this is kind of the exact opposite, in which they do sort of use the medium to best effect to take the story, which if you told it just kind of chronologically and matter-of-factly would still be pretty wild. But the way they structure it, so you're just constantly little bits of it are being revealed and revealed and revealed. And some of the stuff that you find out later is the stuff that sort of precipitates everything. I just thought it was very a lot of thought was put into how do you sequence what people find out. And for all but the last 2 episodes, I thought they did a close to perfect job with that.
Laura, it seems like you agree.
Yeah, that was actually, I think I had a note about that I loved the setup of this. I was like, this is told just like kind of like a British murder mystery or like one of those really twisty mysteries that I love to watch and read where the story has layer upon layer upon layer and you're getting it. And then I get to the last 2 episodes and I'm like, okay, like we needed to know the resolution, like we needed to know that the trial happened. But we went from like having like this really fascinating story structure to like this very straightforward telling of like, guess what? He got arrested with his daughter. And that whole part is very disturbing. And then there was a trial and now he won't talk to us, the end of the story. So I loved up until the last 2. And the last 2 aren't horrible. It just, the structure was just so compelling. Like I just kept wanting to listen to the next episode. And then I was like, okay, we lost momentum here.
The last 2 were just normal. I thought the whole rest of it was great. And then the last 2 are just kind of normal.
Well, and that's the thing is like the rest of it was so good that even though the last 2 were just like normal, like very well done podcast episodes, because what we had before that, to me, I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah, I agree. Like there's a lot of great twists and turns. I mean, I love the scene where, knocks on the wrong door and how this changes everything. I remember Zach Stewart Pontier saying like the way to do this is you've got all the cards. Right? You have them all, and it's just a decision of deciding which card to play and turn at the right time. And I think that just does it well. It does kind of go, I don't want to say chronologically, because we do have a nice sort of jump back, but as far as picking the right moment to start the case, move it along, get to like the different forks in the road and going from there. So I agree with everything you guys said.
I want to talk about the character of Elaine because we meet her fairly early into the podcast. She is a woman that is working in an art gallery when this guy walks in and says, why don't you work for me instead? I'm going to hand you a business of your choosing and give you a bunch of money to do whatever you want. And then later is like, hey, would you mind taking this suitcase full of cash to Switzerland for me?
That's what everybody does. Yeah, totally.
Exactly. What did you think about Elaine, Toby?
I thought she was awesome. In some ways, like her parts of it are like you go to a party and you're talking about some like messed up thing that happened in high school to you. And she's like, well, actually, this is my story. And then just like proceeds to just like blow you away with this crazy stuff that happened to her.
Well, he pulls it out and it says, I've got Swiss francs. He said, would you change this money for me into sterling?
It appeared to be a formidable stack. A serious amount of cash.
And I looked puzzled and a bit shocked. And I said, I don't know, David. I don't think this is legal.
He smiled his warm smile.
She's a very good talker without being super smooth or feel like she's trying to get anything across other than sort of explaining her experience and what she was thinking about different things and just how she ended up in these situations where she wasn't sure what was going on, but had bad feelings about it and was being manipulated and kind of knew it. I found her to be very compelling as a storyteller about it, which is good because of the sort of 4 main people who are involved in the sort of weird dynamic that goes on. She's the only one they have on tape, but I don't know. I found listening to her talk about it to be very, very compelling.
You don't have to be a woman of the world to realize that when the guy who paid for you to go to the hotel wants to come up and see your room, that nothing good will come of it.
Yeah.
But another twist, because it wasn't like you said, I want to get it in. It's more like, hey, can you take this suitcase?
Because that's how totally it gets set up. Oh, I want to get it
That's
in.
how Kevin says, yeah. He's always like, I want to get it in. I'm not joking. I'm being dead serious.
Oh, come on now. I do not say
you
that.
say get it in all the time.
But not for real. That isn't the move. That isn't the actual move.
Get it in. It.
Okay.
We all know what it is. And we all know what in means.
We know where in is.
Sausage launcher from the last episode.
Sausage launcher.
Sorry, Kevin. Sorry to reveal that fact about you, but it is in fact true.
Spoiler alert. Kevin wants to get it in.
So, Laura, you also liked Elaine.
Yeah, no, I did. I thought that she was just such an interesting character. And the fact that she can tell this story in a way that obviously it's like this horrible, crazy thing that's happened, but she tells it in a way there's still like a touch of humor in there. And the way Sam, the host in the beginning, when he's like talking about her and he's like, oh, Elaine. And she's talking about how handsome this guy was. And she describes it like some old movie character. And he's like, well, I didn't know. So I like hold it up. Oh, Elaine. So she was just, the fact that she was willing to put herself out there and retell this story that I'm sure she's told before, but do it in a way that felt fresh and interesting. And like, I could just sit there and listen to her. Like, I want to go hang out with her.
Well, you don't have to want to put it in to join our Patreon.
Oh, wow.
But it doesn't hurt.
Getting it in.
It doesn't hurt.
What's the getting it in level, Kevin?
The getting it in level?
Yes, clearly we're in a business section right now.
Yeah. Okay, well, if you join us at patreon.com/partners in crime media, you can get it in at the leading off level.
You can get in at the leading off level.
Get in, yes. You can't, yes. Get it in is a whole different level that we haven't set a price at yet. So we have great exclusive podcasts that you can listen to, like the Crime Writers on After Show, Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast. In the next episode, Toby's going to be talking about the book A Murder in the Bayou. We also have our advice podcast, Married with Podcast.
Sure do.
Rebecca and I will be talking about our medical weight loss journeys.
And getting it in.
Yeah, and like another feature of Patreon is like for that episode, if you're not a patron or you're a future patron, you can purchase that one episode to listen to for a very small price.
Really? Very small?
Very small price. We also have Rebecca's Readathon, which is a look at the Karen Reed case. And did the judge freak out for really no fucking reason?
Uh-huh.
The answer is yes.
Bev.
If you join us at the Bricker Scale level, you'll get Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast. And in the last one, she goes up the famous Mount Washington Auto Road, but not in a car. She goes up in a snowcat.
Was it actually up the road, Laura?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. It wasn't up just the side of the mountain?
No, well, it felt
straight up the side of the mountain.
That's what they do with snowcats and the skiers.
Well, I'm going to tell you, it felt like just up the side of the mountain because there's no guardrails or anything on the side of this road that goes up the mountain, which is not plowed.
Right.
So it was an adventure.
Got it.
Now, if you are, as you know, a future patron, what you can always do is you can go to our Patreon and you can try us out for 7 days for free. You also can listen to little snippets, the first couple of minutes of all of the podcasts.
Not always the first. Sometimes I make it the most interesting part, but usually it's the first couple
okay.
minutes.
So you like start monkeying with it. Okay.
Yeah.
So there are ways we can let you kind of join us. And we always like to say, because Apple already has too much of your money, if you join us, don't join us using the Apple app. Use the laptop or go to the Android store.
Why are you whispering?
Because I don't want Apple to hear me talking about this.
Okay.
Because, you know, Apple will add 30% to your charge. We don't get that 30%. Only
Tim
Apple does.
Why are you doing that?
Yeah, Tim Apple. But another way you can support us is checking out our Amazon storefront. Amazon gave us one where we can show some of our favorite things. Rebecca, what are this week's Amazon recommendations?
Well, Kevin, I teased it in the last episode, but I'm going with readers in bulk.
No.
You can buy a package of 3 readers on Amazon for like $20. They have all different kinds of readers on Amazon. They've got Oprah's favorite readers. They have all sorts of cute readers. I have some giant ones. I have some small ones, and I bought them all, except for the pair I made you take me to CVS for. Bought them all on Amazon.
Okay, well, you put that on the storefront.
I'll get it in there.
You'll get it in.
I don't doubt you, Rebecca.
If you want to get it in, you know that you can. It's me who's always begging. Okay,
I don't have anything to get in.
I don't have anything to get in. All right, let's shift gears, Toby Ball.
Thankfully.
Yeah, at the Amazon storefront, what are your listener-inspired Toby Ball's deep cut recommendations?
Well, it's getting to be that time of the season, Kevin. Time for your 30-ounce Easter Bunny tumbler with handle and flip straw rabbit. Stainless steel vacuum insulated cup. Travel mug, water bottle, gifts for women, bunny love.
Wow.
Bunny love.
Love that.
A tumbler for Easter. Okay, that sounds
with a
awesome.
Flip straw rabbit, whatever that is.
There's something else you can buy on Amazon called the rabbit. Just saying. Go ahead, Toby.
Would you like to do this segment, Rebecca?
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Toby.
Withings Body Comp. Scale for body weight and complete body analysis. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Baby. Digital scale, accurate visceral fat heart, health SCA, which I think is short for Scamanda.
Jesus Christ. So this thing attached, like, what do you need Wi-Fi on your scale for?
And for some reason it says baby. So are you getting a complete baby's body? analysis with an accurate visceral fat heart.
My baby's BMI is out of control.
Gotta get that baby to a gym.
What is a visceral
for babies?
What is a visceral fat heart? I don't know. It's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of those titles that just threw a bunch of words in there for the SEO. That's just my guess.
Yeah, I think that might be almost all of them.
I wonder how much my baby weighs. Bing, this is what
let
comes
me
up.
connect my Wi-Fi to find out.
I'm wondering about the visceral fat heart health.
Nobody wants like their scale connected directly to Facebook.
Yeah.
That just doesn't sound great.
I'm sorry, if your heart is in your viscera, like you've got some problems. Just saying.
I don't even know what that is.
It's the shit in your gut. It's like when you open it up, it's visceral, you know? You say something's visceral, it means it's hitting you in the gut.
Yeah, visceral fat heart health.
Yeah. Oh, it's visceral fat / heart health, but they didn't put the slash.
There's no slash.
Of course not, because they don't want to use up the characters.
It's just all one sentence.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, they have to spell out baby as well.
But it's baby. Yeah, baby digital scale accurate visceral fat heart health SCA. Amanda.
Yeah, well, they could do accurate, and you could have just had the number 8. That would have saved a bunch of things.
Yeah,
but it would have
like a
really
license
confused
plate?
everything. Exactly. All right. Remember to shop us first at Amazon.com/shop/Crime Writers On. We earn commissions on qualified purchases.
All right, Kevin, before we end this business section, I have a very important question for you that I've never asked you before.
Oh, okay.
Do we have any Patreon patron saints of the week this week?
Our Patreon patron saints are Angela Mann and Natalie Peterson. Bless you.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Natalie. As of right now, you're my two favorite
long-time
Patreon
OG patrons. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for listening to everything we make. Thank you so much for supporting us on Patreon. And if you don't yet, as Kevin said, you can try it out, or you can buy one of our episodes that we're going to put up for sale at
one of our episodes.
One. It's an
It's a proof of concept, yeah.
It's an experiment. If a lot of people buy it, maybe we'll do that with more of them that we think you guys will like.
If we make $1, it means we all get 25 cents.
That's right.
So, yeah.
Each of us, minus the state tax stuff that I have to take out and all that shit.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I bet you Apple's going to take a cut of that, too. Fuck!
Yes. All right, Kevin, does that end the business section?
Thus ends the business section.
I'm going to go ahead and fade that music out right now. All right, Kevin, let's finish up our discussion.
Yeah, because we got to make dinner.
We do?
Yeah, we almost never have time for dinner, and that's why HelloFresh is so fantastic.
Oh, HelloFresh.
So you can skip the grocery store and make cooking at home easy, fun, and affordable with HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Of course, it's delivered right to your door. But what we like about it is that you don't have to take too much time to make it. Now, of course, they got all sorts of great recipes, like the pork sausage spaghetti bolognese.
Ooh, my
It's in
favorite.
their Hall of Fame. Very easy to make. You got a little extra time. You want to put that effort into the gingery coconut chicken soup.
So good.
Sometimes, though, you just got to get it done, right? Because you've been podcasting all day. So HelloFresh's prep and bake meals come together within 5 minutes of prep, while HelloFresh's 15-minute meals are done in just 3 simple steps.
Incredible.
So you can finish up what you're doing. You can put some great food on the table. Remember, all the time, though, you also save from, like, grocery shopping.
Oh, yeah, Kevin, there's so many great options here.
Get up to 10 free meals and a free high-protein item for life at HelloFresh.com/HelloFreshPodcast. 1 item per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's up to 10 free HelloFresh meals. Just go to HelloFresh.com/HelloFreshPodcast.
Don't miss the Hulu original docuseries Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Frankie.
My wife created a YouTube channel.
Thumbs up, subscribe.
But only what we wanted to show them.
I'm still recording!
A 3-part series of that.
She said the children were demonically possessed.
Get out!
That blew the powder keg.
Ruby crossed a line to psychotic.
911 emergency.
Open the door!
Hulu's Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Frankie. All episodes now streaming on Hulu.
So, Kevin, who's our next sponsor?
Oh, we're brought to you by Quince.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, with the new year comes a new opportunity to reimagine ourselves and, more importantly, our wardrobes.
Incredible.
Refresh your look with quality pieces and stay on budget with Quince. You know what happens in January?
What?
We talk about all the things that we wanted for Christmas but never got, so we buy it for ourselves.
Yes.
That includes high-quality clothes, things that look good, feel good, and you can get that from Quince.
Kevin, I am a Quince fanatic.
You are.
I have multiple items in multiple colors of the same item from Quince. I love their cashmere sweaters.
They're cozy Mongolian cashmere sweaters.
Incredible sweaters at a great price.
Yeah, they're always priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands, and they're able to do that by partnering directly with top factories, cutting out the cost of the middleman. No middleman.
I love how they actually show you, Kevin. Mm-hmm. They actually show you like what it would cost if you bought it somewhere else, like from the same place. It's incredible. So upgrade your closet this year without that upgraded price tag. Go to quince.com/crime for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/crime to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/crime. So I want to talk about Sam Mullins. He's a podcaster that we have already determined on this show that we like a lot. Mm-hmm. He made Chameleon Wild Boys. He also made Dr. Dante, which was a podcast where he had almost no tape and just had to write his way around the story, and we all thought he did a good job of that. He did not report this story. I know that because I always listen to the credits at the end of the last episode of every podcast we listen to, because sometimes the credits on previous episodes are incomplete and don't contain everybody, but the last episode, for some reason, always contains everyone and all the information. And in this one, I heard that somebody else reported the story, and he hosted and did some writing on the story.
We heard like the female
we heard her asking questions at one point.
So, that's not Sam, yeah.
So, Kevin, thoughts on Sam Mullins' writing and delivery?
I also like Sam. I liked a lot of the asides I thought were pretty witty, but...
Like faxing your butt through a fax machine?
Yeah. It was for those of you who don't know.
Gen Zers.
It's not your actual butt, is it?
No, passing a picture of your butt.
Yeah, and the whole thing about like Halloween, people dress as Baby Spice or whatever. I mean, I think those things were really great, but there was something in his writing this time that really began to grate on me.
Really?
Yeah. There were just like too many moments of wide-eyed, this changes everything.
Most important phone call of her life.
Yeah, and nothing would ever be the same. Like it just seemed like it was such unnecessary melodrama. Like there's this one scene where the guy is making tea and he can't find a pencil.
I couldn't even find a pen, so I grabbed a piece of paper and a pencil and I started writing what he told me.
The mundane detail of writing utensil was more significant than Clenahan realized in the moment. He had no way of knowing that in 2 years' time, this very note would become evidence.
It's like if he doesn't find a pencil, all these people are going to die and a bomb is going to go off because this piece of paper is the most important thing, the salvation of mankind. And besides like building up this whole thing about like how important this piece of paper is, like in the end, in the final episode of trial, like this doesn't really come up or doesn't really play out. But the point being that there was just an awful lot of like building up like how everything was so really important. And like, I'll just say, I was out shoveling the snow because it snowed like fuck here.
Oh, and yeah. We got 4 feet of snow on our
was
deck.
Listening and I remember it. And there was at one point when he said this and I clicked it off and I said, let me guess, changes everything? Click. Changes everything. You know, and it's like, okay, I would have liked a whole lot less of that.
All right. So Kevin's complaints aside, unless you share them, Laura Bricker, what are your thoughts on Sam Mullins?
I liked him. And I found that it was just very engaging. And I feel like this story was so off the rails that like, if it was me telling it, people would be like, Laura, just stop being like, oh my God, guess what happened next? Because this is like an, oh my God, this is what happened next kind of story to me. So yeah, there was some where I was like the fax machine thing. I was like, whatever. It was just conversational in a way that made it for me just really, I was already interested in this story, but I felt like I was like hearing this story at a party type thing. Like this is kind of the way you might tell somebody a story if you were just kind of like, get a load of this. And then this happened. Then the most exciting rose ceremony ever happened next.
Somebody watches The Bachelor. Just going to say. Toby, what are your thoughts here?
I may be wrong, but I kind of took all that, this would be the most important phone call of her life stuff. Is a little bit of tongue in cheek, but I could be completely off on that because there was a lot of it. I guess I'm just learning now that he wasn't really involved in the reporting on this.
Listen to the credits.
Which seems a little weird, to be honest with you. It's only weird in that I think he did the reporting on the other two, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know about Dante, but I do know he did Wild Boys.
Didn't he have a scene where he showed up at Dante's trailer at the very end? Was that him? Anyway, yeah.
So anyway, I find that a little weird that like he's just kind of come in to be a voice, but I find him an engaging listen. I like that cut of his jib, but I think he does a good job with the story. I think it's written well. I assume like even if he wasn't doing the reporting, again, I think the way that it's structured is really a big part of what makes this sort of stand out as a podcast. Mm-hmm. I mean, the reporting is obviously really good. I'm not trying to downgrade that at all, but I think there's a bunch of like a lot of podcasts, there's a lot of things that go into making it as good as it is.
Yeah.
And his narration is one of those things.
So I typically am averse to shows where it's very clear the host was just brought in because they're the host and like somebody else did a lot of the reporting, legwork interviews. I don't mind in this case. And I also don't mind something else that I usually hate. Sam Mullins has a radio voice and a regular voice. And I know that because at one point in the podcast, he's doing the pitch for CBC's like paid firewall stuff. And his voice is completely different. So I'm like, he has a performance voice and a non-performance voice.
It wouldn't be a huge culture shock. It'd just be Canada. They have the Queen on all their stuff too. And sure, it's the year 1993, and it's not like you can ask Google, is Calgary a place that I should go to live?
And that would normally bother me, but it doesn't with him. And maybe it's just because he's so good at writing for himself that the delivery and the writing and the performance actually becomes part of the podcast. I liken it to very different, but the same way that I sort of feel about Keith Morrison. Like Keith Morrison definitely does some interviews for Dateline. Like we see him sitting there, but he didn't do the pre-interview. He didn't do the research. He didn't do the story writing. He didn't do the source tracking. Like that's all producer work. That's all producers doing the reporting on Dateline. But they know if Keith's not the one saying it, no one's going to pay attention to it. And I feel like Sam is that kind of talent where you can bring him in to help finish a project or bring a project home. And he's just very freaking entertaining. Interestingly, you know who else was in the credits of this? Somebody who either edited or helped oversee the podcast or put it together was Damon Fairless was in the credits list. Remember him?
No, who's that?
He made Hunting Warhead. He's the host of Hunting Warhead.
Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah, also
Another
a CBC
CBC
show. Yeah.
But you really can't fault production-wise where you've got, like, the story takes place in Canada and in England, and that, you utilize a whole other team to, like, do some news gathering.
Yeah, a producer in England.
Yeah, I mean, you put a lot of it together. Like, I think, like, Sam's contributions go beyond voicing it.
Sure, I'm sure they
certainly
did.
Seemed like he had a big hand in writing the scripts, or at the very least had a big influence on whoever was, because a lot of that. I mean, that's one of the things we always talk about is like you want to be able to write in your voice. Your written voice should reflect your speaking voice, your delivery. Like that's like really the essence of you. And I get that from this. And like my complaints aside about like where I think it went too far, he's able to, in all of his stuff, sort of very well write for himself.
Yeah, I agree with that. So Kevin, one of the things in the podcast is we hear from a lot of cops. One of them has an ASMR voice. He's the only one who's sort of separated from the others. But I definitely kind of lost track of which cop was which. And because they all sounded very similar. They sounded like middle-aged white guys, right?
Yeah, like I really didn't make a connection with any of the officers involved in this, like a personal connection, or hang your hat on this character who does this. They all did great. The voices changed because, I mean, in reality, they all had different aspects of this investigation. One guy looked at the body on the boat, another guy knocked on the door.
Different parts of the country.
The other part, and another officer took Sheena across Canada to fly her back to England on
the RAF plane.
Yeah, on a fucking military plane. So different people did different things. I don't know why it just didn't seem like any of them stood out as characters. They seem very utilitarian, but they're a big part of the soundscape. They're a big part of telling the story. So I don't know if it needed to click, but it just is like for as much time as we spend with these officers, they just sort of all blended into one utilitarian function.
Yeah. So I have a question about another element of this story that I think the podcast is extremely conservative about talking about and reporting.
I know what it's going to be.
Because the police...
You know what it is, yeah.
Yeah, because the police won't talk to them about it. And Sam says that there are some people in the story, police, who wouldn't talk to them if he asked them about it. And it kind of made me wonder... I'm not sure why. I mean, this is something that actually happened, right?
Right.
And Laura, that is the fact that this guy, this con man, impregnated his own daughter. We have no evidence to show he didn't, right? Yeah, twice. That she had 2 kids with her father who she believed she chose to run away with, but then later realized she had been groomed. And it doesn't come up in court. The judge asks, is there anything else you guys want to talk about? And both sides are like, nope. And the cops won't talk about it. And the podcast is extremely careful about it.
What I can tell you, though, is that when the detectives asked her, this stolen child who had spent a quarter of her life on the lam, who the father of her 2 small children was, she said nothing and began to cry.
What are your thoughts on that, Laura?
I thought that was like you could see the writing on the wall as they're talking about the setup of how they like go to the house and she's there and there's like 2 little children and they're like, and that she's been living as his wife and everybody thinks this is his wife at this point. But then the way that they explained it was they said basically like she cried when they asked who the father was. And that's all they would say. So, they've confirmed this. I understand for her, imagine like living the rest of your life with these children that are actually your father's.
Your siblings and your children.
Yes. And sort of the trauma that's going to go with that. So I can see them not wanting to inflame that. But at the same time, a lot of time has passed in this case. And it's one of those weird, like, it's off the table. We're not going to talk about it. But that makes us want to talk about it more because they didn't talk about it, right?
Yeah. I kind of get the sense that it was like also the tone of the podcast didn't match how dark that part of the story was. What are your thoughts, Toby?
Yeah, I mean, I assume that they basically didn't want to talk about it out of respect for her.
Yep,
and the trauma that she went through. And I think your point about it being a little bit darker than everything else is well taken. And I also think that it's really kind of a side plot to the story they're telling. So maybe it's not that important to understanding the main story that they've got going on. I think it's actually very good restraint on the part of the prosecutors to not bring it up because like you can very easily see it. It's like, we're just going to bury this guy and show what a freaking monster he is by pointing this out. And they decided not to do that. And I think that's a sort of moral and responsible choice that they made. Again, I mean, it's interesting that they even kind of bring it up, although I guess you kind of have to account for these 2 kids because that does come up in the show. But I don't really have any complaint with the way they handled it. I mean, they give you enough that you can draw a conclusion without sort of dwelling on it.
Yeah. I'm sure it was an editorial conversation that they had for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, certainly raises the stakes of the story. But you're right. They basically give you enough information that you can draw a strong conclusion about what that is. I wonder like how much too of like the way it's handled in this podcast is when you look at these 2 particular cultures, British and the Canadian, about how polite they are, or at least prim and proper they are known to be. And if that's like, this is also sort of a function of that. Certainly if this were America, we would have been all over that and we'd be, but this is also a victim, right?
Yep.
And I got to imagine that if she didn't have any evidentiary value to the murder of Ronald Platt, whether or not she would be in the public eye at all. But they needed her to testify. It's like we don't know anything really about the children other than their ages because, again, they're victims.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to know about them that advances anything about this crime. So to that extent, that we see Sheena, and we definitely know enough that we don't need Sam to say it. But I thought what was telling was, this dog doesn't bark, where like he says, like people wouldn't talk with us if we mention this, which is enough of a anvil here. You're like, okay, yeah, all right. I think we know why. And we can put it together ourselves.
Don't miss the Hulu original docuseries Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Frankie.
My wife created a YouTube channel.
Thumbs up, subscribe.
But only what we wanted to show.
I'm still recording!
A 3-part series of that.
She said the children were demonically possessed.
Get out!
That blew the powder keg.
Ruby crossed a line to psychotic.
911 emergency.
Open the door!
Hulu's Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Frankie. All episodes now streaming on Hulu.
This cold and flu season, Instacart is here to help deliver all of your sick day essentials. Whether you're in prevention mode and need vitamins, hand sanitizer, and that lemon tea your Nana swears by, or you're in healing mode and need medicine, soup, and a lot more tissues. Simply download the Instacart app to get sick day supplies that reinvigorate or relieve delivered in as fast as 30 minutes. Plus, enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 orders. Excludes restaurant orders. Service fees and terms apply.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out Uncover, Sea of Lies from CBC Podcasts. Laura Bricker, thumbs up or thumbs down for Sea of Lies?
Yeah, this is a big thumbs up for me. This is my favorite podcast that we've listened to in quite some time. It's got all the things I like. Somebody with a double life, lots of twists and turns, story told in a very interesting way and order, and not necessarily chronologically. That for me, I just kept wanting to listen to the next episode. We've got Canada, we've got England, we've got interesting people. We've got a host that is, fun to listen to. The final 2 episodes for me weren't as exciting as the initial episodes, but overall that doesn't really affect my review of this podcast. I was like, finally, an interesting story to listen to that's not the same old that we've been listening to. So big thumbs up for me.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for Uncover, Sea of Lies.
Yeah, I agree with Laura. I love this podcast. Again, I think the last 2 episodes aren't up to the very, very high quality of the first 5, I guess. And again, sort of echoing Laura, I was listening to this, I'd be like, oh yeah, this is like why I used to really like listening to podcasts. Well, I still do, I guess, but it reminded me of like some of the classic podcasts we listen to. It's just sort of a unique listening experience. There's a lot of craft put into sort of a unique way of telling a sort of on its face, very interesting story, but so much thought has been put in how they're going to tell the story and in what order and what the tone of the story is going to be and stuff. Yeah, it did harken back to some of the great podcasts we've listened to. And again, I think the only thing for me that kind of keeps it from rising to that very, very top level is the last 2 episodes, which are good, they're not bad. They're sort of thumbs up episodes. But I think given what comes before it, they're like a little bit of a letdown. But it's like a lot of things when you're trying to tie up a story, sometimes you just got to kind of get the information out there and all the craft that you were using before when you're telling the main story. It's kind of hard to work that in. So it's not really a big strike against it. So anyway, huge thumbs up. I hope people listen to it. I would not listen to our main discussion. I would listen to this podcast first and then listen to our discussion. But definitely do check it out.
Kevin Flynn.
I'm a mild thumbs up on this. This script probably holds the world record for the most exclamation points. But that aside, I thought like the first 5 episodes was really great as the way they're telling, like the way the story plays out, the twists and turns. They really do make the most of it. The last 2 episodes, as you say, it's the resolution of the case. So it does end up being fairly rudimentary in that way. But overall, it's an interesting crime, and the way that they approached it, both in real life and how they do in this format, very illuminating, and it's entertaining. So I think folks will like it.
Yeah, I like this podcast a lot. And I just want to shout out CBC Podcasts. They make really good stuff. And this one was a partnership with another production house. And they don't have a 100-person podcast team at CBC. That's just something I happen to know. And the quality of stories they put in this Uncover feed are great. And the thing that listeners should know is that very often, if not always, but at least sometimes, they then pull the story. They keep the story in the Uncover feed, but they also spin it out in an individual feed, so it's easier to find on the apps. Like, for instance, Escaping Nexium was originally an Uncover podcast, and you can find it in the feed, and you can also find it as Escaping Nexium. And that, by the way, is a strategy that we stole from you at NHPR, a CBC podcast. We now do the same thing. Anyway, I really, really like this podcast a lot. Sam Mullins is so freaking entertaining. There's like 3 podcasters that I would just listen to hear what they have to say in the narrative space. That's Dan Taberski, Sam Mullins, and Jane Marie. Very clever writing, very good at writing for himself. And there's one trick that he does in this that's the same thing he does in Dr. Dante. There are some characters we never hear from and can't hear from or won't hear from. And he'll do a whole scene where he just tells you what somebody said and then tells you what the other person said and then tells you what happens because there's no one else to do it. And I still want to listen to it. And normally stuff like that is so boring. Like, it's like, you don't have the tape, just summarize it quickly and move on. But he'll just be like, and then she said, and then the judge said, and then he said. And it's just like, that's a lot to do. And that's hard to do well. And anyone who can do that well for me deserves a big thumbs up. So yeah, thumbs up for me for Sea of Lies. That's going to do it for us. But before we go, Laura Bricker, I have a very important question for you.
Yes.
Do we have a cat of the week this week?
This is so fun. Because we just did a UK story, we have a cat. Adventurous Surrey cat hopped the train to London. Tilly has become a celebrity. This cat jumped on a train and went 17 miles from Surrey to London, leading her owner to collect her from Waterloo Station. Her owner, Michael Hardy, was surprised to make the trip into London when Tilly unexpectedly took the train. The 2-year-old cat has become something of a sensation in her hometown because she visits pubs and schools and often travels around her own town on buses and Ubers. But this is the longest trip and most exciting one yet. Now, here's the follow-up. After this, Tilly the cat earned a rail card from the Southwest Railway.
Wow.
So they presented Tilly the cat with a rail card last week. So this just cracked me up. I love these cats that go on adventures. So there we go.
All right, Tilly. Laura Bricker, if folks want to reach out to you online and pitch any kind of animal to be Cat of the Week, how can they find you there?
You can find me at Laura Bricker on Blue Sky and Instagram.
You can also put those cats on our Facebook group, or you can email them to us at crimewriterson@gmail.com. We read every single email that comes in there, hundreds a day. No, I'm just kidding. It's not that many, but we do read every single one of them. Toby Ball, how can you be found online?
At Toby Ball NH.
Kevin, what about you?
I'm at Kevin P. Flynn.
You can find me everywhere at Reb Lavoie. You can find the show everywhere, including Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, etc. at Crime Writers On. But mostly I encourage you to join our incredible Facebook group. You may have quit Meta, like in your head, but it is worth staying for this one thing. Our Facebook group is rad. Get episodes early and ad-free at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media. You could have listened to this already. Plus all the other stuff we make back there. More than 700 episodes, right, Kevin?
Mm-hmm.
Our theme song was composed and performed by Tyler Gibbons. Our editor is the truly wonderful and lovely Livy Burdett. The EP of this show is Kevin. This show was recorded in Studio C, the closet in our New Hampshire basement, where we always keep a pencil handy just in case a murderer calls us while we're making tea, and where we also ask to get it in. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later. The latest season of the CBC's podcast, Uncover.
It's CBC Podcast is the proper name. Yeah.
The latest season of the CBC podcast series, Uncover.
No.
CBC Podcast series.
CBC Podcast is the name of the
I know
studio.
that, and I just put the two S's together. It's fine.
Okay, it's not the CBC's Podcast.
You literally have that in the script.
All right, then it's my fault. It's my fault.
All right. The latest season of CBC Podcast series, Uncover, Sea of Lies.
No, you're right. Do it the right way, because it's the series. It's not the CBC Podcast.
Thank you.
All right.
Jesus Christ. You know, we could always talk about this stuff after the show, and then I could retrack it instead of you doing this in front of other people. Just saying.
They already know you can't read.
The latest season of the CBC podcast series, Uncover, Sea of Lies, looks into the case.
Is it Uncover or is it Uncovered?
Oh my God, what's happening?
That's why we should do it later.
Toby Ball.
All right, you guys ready?
We're ready. Are you?
Partners in Crime Media.